In the depths of a Swiss archive, buried beneath decades of forgotten correspondence, lies a single piece of paper that has baffled historians for over 50 years. 7 words, scrawled in desperate handwriting, pinned to Charlie Chaplin's door on the night he fled America forever. Those 7 words, they know about the girl in Berlin, would unlock a mystery so dark, so carefully buried, that even today, scholars debate whether the truth should ever see the light of day. The autumn rain fell heavily on New York Harbor as the RMS Queen Elizabeth prepared for departure on September 17, 1952. Among the passengers boarding that fateful evening was a man whose silhouette had once commanded the attention of millions. Charlie Chaplin, clutching a single suitcase and wearing the haunted expression of someone who knew he would never return home. What the world didn't know was that tucked inside Chaplin's coat pocket was a crumpled piece of paper, the very note that had been pinned to his Beverly Hills mansion door just 48 hours earlier. The handwriting was familiar, yet the message was cryptic enough to send one of cinema's greatest icons into permanent exile. As the ship's horn echoed across the harbor, Chaplin stood at the stern, watching America disappear into the Chaplin darkness. Little did he know that this mysterious note would outlive his legacy and haunt historians for generations to come. The note itself was discovered decades later by Chaplin's estate manager, Henry Closet, who had been cataloging the comedian's personal effects. Closet, a meticulous man who had served the Chaplin family for over 30 years, nearly discarded it as meaningless correspondence until he noticed the date. September 15, 1952, just 2 days before Chaplin's sudden departure from the United States. The timing was too coincidental to ignore, and as Closet examined the paper more closely, he realized he was holding a piece of history that could rewrite everything the world thought it knew about Charlie Chaplin. The early 1950s were treacherous times for anyone in Hollywood who had ever expressed liberal views or associated with left-leaning organizations. Senator Joseph McCarthy's communist witch hunt had reached fever pitch, and Charlie Chaplin, an outspoken critic of fascism and capitalism, had painted a target on his back that grew larger with each public. But the FBI's file on Chaplin, now declassified and spanning over 2,000 pages, reveals something far more sinister than mere political persecution. Agent provocateurs had been assigned to monitor not just Chaplin's political activities, but his personal relationships, his private correspondence, and most disturbingly, his past. The note that appeared on his door wasn't the work of government agents. A handwriting analysis, conducted in 1987, revealed it belonged to someone much closer to Chaplin's inner circle, someone who had access to secrets that even the FBI couldn't uncover. The revelation that this mysterious messenger was likely someone Chaplin trusted added a layer of betrayal that historians still struggle to comprehend. Who among his friends, colleagues, or family members possessed knowledge so damaging that a simple 7-word warning could drive one of the world's most famous men into exile? The answer, according to recently discovered correspondence between Chaplin and his longtime friend H.G. Wells, may lie buried in the ruins of 1920s Berlin, where a young Chaplin had spent several mysterious months during the height of the Weimar Republic's decadence. The official biographies all tell the same sanitized story. Charlie Chaplin visited Berlin briefly in 1924 as part of a European promotional tour for the Gold Rush, but newly uncovered hotel registrations, passport stamps, and witness testimonies paint a dramatically different picture, one of a 3-month stay filled with underground parties, dangerous liaisons, and encounters that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Berlin, in 1924, was a city teetering on the edge of chaos and rebirth. The hyperinflation crisis had created a surreal landscape where millionaires could become paupers overnight, and where the city's legendary nightlife offered escape from economic despair. It was into this intoxicating and dangerous world that the 25-year-old Chaplin disappeared, leaving behind his carefully crafted public persona to explore the darker corners of human nature. According to Klaus Muller, a German theater historian who spent decades researching Chaplin's Berlin period, the comedian didn't stay in the luxury hotels where his publicity team claimed to book him. Instead, he rented a modest apartment in Schneeberg, a bohemian district known for its artists, intellectuals, and underground political movements. It was here, Muller argues, that Chaplin met the mysterious figure known only as Die, Berlinerin the Berlin Girl, whose identity has remained one of cinema history's most closely guarded secrets. Contemporary accounts from Berlin's artistic community describe Chaplin as a changed man during this period. Gone was the playful persona that charmed audiences worldwide. In its place was someone darker, more introspective, seemingly carrying the weight of terrible knowledge. The writer Stefan Zweig, who encountered Chaplin at a cafe in Unter den Linden, later wrote in his private diary, "The little tramp has seen too much. Berlin has shown him something that cannot be unseen, and I fear it will destroy him." Her name was Marlene Hoffmann, though she went by dozens of aliases throughout 1920s Berlin. Photographer, spy, revolutionary, Muse Marlene was all of these things and more. A woman who moved through Berlin's underground like smoke, leaving behind only whispers and broken hearts. What she also left behind was a secret so dangerous that it would follow Charlie Chaplin across the Atlantic and into the depths of American paranoia. Recently, declassified Stasi files from the former East Germany contain fragments of Marlene's story. Born in 1901 to a wealthy Munich family, she had fled to Berlin after a scandal involving forged documents and stolen artwork. By 1924, she had reinvented herself as a political activist and underground journalist, documenting the rise of extremist movements on both ends of the political spectrum. Her apartment, according to police records from the time, served as a meeting place for communists, anarchists, and surprisingly, several prominent American visitors who would later become household names. Chaplin's relationship with Marlene began, according to witness accounts, at a clandestine gathering in an abandoned theater where she was showing illegal films documenting political violence. What started as artistic collaboration soon became something more intimate and infinitely more dangerous. Marlene possessed information about American figures, politicians, businessmen, and celebrities who had been secretly funding both communist and fascist movements in Europe, playing all sides in preparation for conflicts that hadn't yet begun. The nature of their relationship remains unclear, but what is certain is that Marlene trusted Chaplin with secrets that could have toppled governments. She gave him names, dates, photographs, and documents that revealed a web of corruption and betrayal spanning both sides of the Atlantic. Little did either of them know that this knowledge would become a sword hanging over Chaplin's head for the next 3 decades, waiting for the perfect moment to fall. On March 15, 1925, Marlene Hoffmann simply disappeared. Her apartment was found empty, her belongings gone, and her neighbors claimed they had never seen her leave. Berlin police records show a brief investigation that was mysteriously closed after just 2 weeks, with officials claiming there was no evidence of foul play. But those who knew Marlene understood that people like her didn't just vanish. They were made to vanish. Charlie Chaplin left Berlin just 3 days after Marlene's disappearance, abandoning his film promotion commitments and fleeing to London like a man running from death itself. His behavior during this time, as documented by his traveling companion Douglas Fairbanks, Jr., was that of someone who had witnessed something horrific. He barely spoke, refused to eat, and spent hours staring out train windows as if expecting to see familiar faces in pursuit. What Chaplin carried with him from Berlin wasn't just memories, it was evidence. Hidden within his personal effects, sewn into the lining of his trunk, were photographs and documents that Marlene had entrusted to him before her disappearance. These weren't just political secrets. They were proof of crimes that, if revealed, would destroy some of the most powerful people in America. The question that haunted Chaplin for the next 27 years was simple. Who else knew what he knew? The answer came in the form of that 7-word note, pinned to his door like a death sentence. Someone had been watching, waiting, and finally decided that Chaplin's secret was too dangerous to remain buried. The girl in Berlin was gone, but the truth she had shared lived on, a ticking time bomb that would eventually explode and send one of the world's most beloved figures into permanent exile. Chaplin's return to America in 1925 was marked by a whirlwind. Romance that shocked Hollywood, his sudden engagement to 16-year-old Lita Grey, a minor actress who had appeared in his films. To the outside world, it seemed like another case of an older man's infatuation with youth. But those close to Chaplin understood that this marriage was less about love and more about creating a shield of respectability around secrets that could destroy him. Lita Grey, born Lilita Louise McMurray, was ambitious and cunning beyond her years. She understood that her relationship with Chaplin offered more than just financial security. It provided access to one of Hollywood's most closely guarded private lives. According to her later testimony in their bitter divorce proceedings, Chaplin would sometimes wake up screaming in German, calling out for someone named Marlene, his sheets soaked with sweat and his eyes wild with terror. The marriage was doomed from the beginning, but it served its purpose. For 2 years, Chaplin played the role of devoted husband and father, attending premieres and social events with a smile that never quite reached his eyes. Meanwhile, he was quietly moving his most sensitive possessions to secret locations, including a safety deposit box in Switzerland that wouldn't be opened for another 50 years. The documents from Berlin were too dangerous to keep in America, but too valuable to destroy. When the marriage finally collapsed in 1927, Lita Grey's divorce filing contained allegations that sent shockwaves through Hollywood. She claimed Chaplin possessed foreign documents of a political nature and maintained correspondence with enemies of the American government. While these claims were largely dismissed as the ravings of a bitter ex-wife, they represented the first public hint that Chaplin's troubles ran deeper than mere marital discord. Someone was already whispering about Berlin, and those whispers were beginning to reach the wrong ears. J. Edgar Hoover had been building files on Hollywood personalities since the 1920s, but his interest in Charlie Chaplin intensified dramatically after receiving an anonymous tip in 1928. The source, whose identity remains classified to this day, claimed that Chaplin possessed documentation proving American industrialists had secretly funded both communist and fascist movements in Europe. More disturbing still, the tipster claimed to have proof that some of these same industrialists were now planning to manipulate American politics through similar methods. The FBI's investigation into Chaplin began quietly, with agents posing as journalists, fans, and even potential business partners. What they discovered was a man living under constant stress, someone who jumped at shadows and seemed perpetually afraid of his own past. Agents noted that Chaplin employed an unusual number of security measures for a comedian. His mail was screened by trusted associates. His phone calls were carefully monitored, and he never traveled anywhere without informing multiple people of his whereabouts. But the most intriguing discovery came when agents began investigating Chaplin's financial records. Hidden among legitimate business expenses were regular payments to a Swiss bank account, deposits that had been ongoing since 1925. The account was registered under a false name, but handwriting analysis suggested Chaplin himself had established it. Even more mysterious were occasional withdrawals from the account, small amounts that seemed to correspond with times when Chaplin appeared particularly anxious or upset. As the investigation deepened, a disturbing pattern emerged. Chaplin wasn't just hiding documents, he was paying someone to keep them safe. Someone in Switzerland was holding the secrets of Berlin, and they were charging Chaplin handsomely for their silence. The FBI realized they weren't just dealing with a potential communist sympathizer. They were investigating someone who might be the victim of a decades-long blackmail scheme. 8. The Hollywood blacklist and growing paranoia by 1940. As World War II raged across Europe, Hollywood had become a battlefield of competing ideologies. Charlie Chaplin found himself caught in the crossfire, his anti-fascist statements making him a target for those who preferred America remain neutral. His film, The Great Dictator, was seen by many as brilliant satire, but by others as dangerous propaganda that pushed America toward a war they weren't ready to fight. The FBI's surveillance of Chaplin intensified during this period, with agents noting his increasing paranoia and erratic behavior. He had begun changing his daily routines without warning, using different entrances to his studio, and employing bodyguards who were instructed to watch for anyone showing particular interest in his activities. Friends described a man who seemed to be waiting for something terrible to happen, someone living under the constant threat of exposure. What the FBI didn't know was that Chaplin's fears were entirely justified. The blackmail payments to Switzerland had increased dramatically, and the person on the receiving end was making new demands. They wanted more than money. Now they wanted Chaplin to use his influence to advance certain political causes, to make statements that would serve their agenda. The documents from Berlin weren't just evidence of past crimes. They had become weapons in a larger game that Chaplin was only beginning to understand. The situation reached a crisis point in 1943 when Chaplin received a letter, postmarked from Geneva, containing a single photograph. The image showed him with Marlene Hoffmann in Berlin, but it wasn't the romantic portrait of two young lovers. Instead, it depicted them examining documents spread across a table documents that bore the letterheads of major American corporations and government agencies. The message was clear. The past was not buried, and someone was preparing to dig it up. In 1943, Joan Barry, a young actress with whom Chaplin had been involved, filed a paternity suit that would dominate headlines for months. While the public focused on the salacious details of their relationship, those investigating Chaplin's background noticed something far more disturbing. Joan Barry had connections to people who shouldn't have existed in her world, people with ties to European intelligence networks and underground political movements. The FBI's investigation revealed that Barry had been in contact with individuals connected to both Nazi and Soviet intelligence operations. Her lawsuit against Chaplin wasn't just about money or revenge. It was part of a coordinated effort to destroy his reputation and credibility. Someone was using Barry as a weapon against Chaplin, exploiting her genuine grievances to serve a larger agenda that had nothing to do with paternity or child support. Made the situation even more complex was Barry's claim that Chaplin had shown her foreign documents and had spoken about dangerous people in Europe who could destroy America from within. While these claims were dismissed by most as the ramblings of a woman scorned, they bore an uncomfortable resemblance to the truth. Chaplin did possess such documents, and they did reveal evidence of a conspiracy that spanned decades and continents. The paternity case was eventually resolved in Chaplin's favor when blood tests proved he couldn't be the father of Barry's child. But the damage was done. The case had created a public record of allegations about foreign documents and secret correspondence. For the first time, Chaplin's Berlin secrets had entered the public domain, disguised as the ravings of an unstable woman, but carrying enough truth to terrify those who understood the real stakes involved.